Ubisoft's The Crew was always going to be either a resounding dud or a pleasantly fun racing experience, and depending upon who you ask, I'm pretty sure that that's the range of answers you're going to get. The driving and simulation aspects are better handled by the titles like Forza, but for PC gamers there isn't really a better choice in recent years. Project Cars and World of Speed are both a ways away, and frankly, The Crew's worth picking up if you're a fan of arcade racers and love open online worlds. Developer Ivory Tower is comprised of many folks who created Test Drive Unlimited, worked on Need for Speed, and so forth. Ergo, racing and open world games are kind of in their blood, and the sprawling open world of the continental United States is pretty amazing to drive through. In fact, some of the best moments I've had in The Crew are just driving with a friend, picking a location, and seeing what it looks like. Acadia National Park in The Crew isn't exactly as awe-inspiring as it is in real life, but it's a hell of a lot easier than driving 16 hours from Ohio in the real world. Now, what's odd about The Crew is that it certainly is an MMO, but the developer is obviously hampered by the inherent design problems of letting hundreds of people zoom around so many square miles alongside AI traffic and getting in the way of other players' progress. So instead of seeing hundreds of people all around, the game uses a server technology that's not unlike Elder Scrolls Online. People from your friends list that are online will be placed around you, and the rest of the real estate will be filled with strangers to meet and play alongside. When you queue up for PvP or any other co-op mission, you will be match-made with anyone on the servers of comparable car level, so you won't always see all the people in the world that are playing the game, but rather handfuls of those people at any given time. And really, except in cases like capital cities or large raids and other MMOs, that's just about what most servers are giving the player while adventuring in your typical sword and board game. Now, there are levels in The Crew and gear of a sort. As you level your character to a max of 50, you'll unlock different car specs from the basic street to the top level circuit, and each car make and model levels independently from the rest. Think of it like Final Fantasy XIV's job and class system. Your Camaro might have a car level, think item level, of 500 plus, but if you haven't been doing skill challenges and races with your Mustang GT, it's going to be far less powerful. To level each car is going to require a great deal of time, and personally I ended up just sticking with my starter car, the Nissan Z, for the duration of this review. I could always work on the Shelby later. Now, your main level 1 to 50 unlocks missions and different car specs across the country, but it's your car's level, dependent upon its loadout, that determines how competitive you'll be in the game's many races, PvP modes, and skill challenges. You'll pretty much always start out in the Midwest, and then work east, and then south, and then west to gear up your cars. In this way, leveling up a whole new car can be a chore because you're repeating the same content, but thankfully there are so many different races and challenges to choose from across the map that it doesn't seem to get very old very fast. I'm sure it would on car number 10 or probably even car number 3, but at least for your first couple cars, it's not going to really be that much of a pain. Add to that the fact that once you visit a region of the country, you can instantly travel to it, and getting around the massive map when you just want to do a specific activity is a breeze. The world is huge and plenty pretty to drive across, but sometimes you just want to get where you're going. If only teleportation worked in real world. Now, you may have noticed I haven't mentioned the game's story much. That's because there's not much to talk about. Though the main character is voiced by the inimitable Troy Baker, he's still the only character option in an MMO. That's right, you're all playing the same bearded emo guy whose brother is killed. Now, when Ivory Tower said the car was truly the player's character, they weren't kidding. But that's what makes the story stand out. They didn't really need to have it in there at all. More time and resources could have been spent on even more real races, maybe different race types, different car types, even additional features overall. But somewhere, someone at Ubisoft decided that they needed a knockoff of the Fast and Furious storyline to go with your racing MMO. It doesn't bring the game down so much as it just kind of leaves you wondering, why is it there in the first place? Now, luckily, you can really tweak the looks of your car and the builds of your car, and there are several dozen different cars to choose from as you progress to 50, including some exclusive rewards tied to Uplay, hidden cars in the game, and the faction wars, which we'll get to in a little bit. And there's even more coming via DLC. Everything from the interior to the license plates can be tweaked, and there are plenty of colors and decals to choose from. It would have been nice to make custom decals, but perhaps that's an option that can be added later. The actual loadout process of your car's tuning isn't very tactical or in-depth, but it's always pretty much just what item is going to give me a higher car level. There is some tweaking to be had if you're really into that sort of thing, just don't expect Gran Turismo levels in that aspect. Now, PvP, especially in so much that it pits 4 versus 4 and factions versus factions, can be a lot of fun, especially when you're racing with or against friends. As of right now, however, it's pretty uncommon to see anyone but the highest level car win. There's still skill involved, and sometimes the highest level car is a bad driver or gets an unlucky crash at the wrong time, but more often than not, if you enter a PvP match and see yourself well below the car level curve, don't expect to finish first. If there's one wish I'd have for the PvP portion of the crew, it would be for Ubisoft and Ivory Tower to enable a mode where car levels are all equaled out so that the race becomes truly about the better racer. Now, the Crew isn't a revolutionary MMO, nor is it a revolutionary racer. It is, however, a fun racing game that happens to be in a persistent online world and has a ton of replayability. Simulation driving fans won't necessarily love it, but fans of Need for Speed, Test Drive Unlimited, and so forth will find a lot to like. Ubisoft claims that they have big plans for the game's future and even more for additional entries down the line, and I'll be watching. The Crew is solid road work for what could be a fantastic MMO ride. It's just not quite there yet. This review was done with a PlayStation 4 review copy provided by Ubisoft and Ivory Tower. I played over 40 hours and toured most of the game's content and story missions. You can friend me on PlayStation Network at Bill Murphy MMORPG. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow MMORPG.com on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook at MMORPG.com without the dot. And you can also head on over to MMORPG.com for the full written review if, video is not your thing. Which, if it's not your thing, why are you here on YouTube? Thanks, guys. Have a good one.